welcome to the Fish Room. I'm Rachel O'Leary, and today we are going to do an update on the 150-gallon modified Hillstream aquarium. Now, this was the very first tank build on my channel about 2.5 years ago, and I wanted to just go over again the plants that I chose, how it's doing, how I maintain it, and all those sorts of things for any of you that are new here, and for those of you that have been around for a while, just so you can see some updates. As you can see from these guys, the yellowfin shiners are in spawning mode, and I just had to capture it on camera for you. So let's take a look, and I'll tell you about some of the successes and some of the failures with this aquarium. Now, for those of you that are new here, this is a low-tech aquarium. I don't use any fertilizers, I don't use any CO2, and I use a totally inert substrate, and that's because the majority, or actually all of the fish in this aquarium, are species that come from areas of really rapid flow, and that really appreciate very dilute water. So I had to choose plants that would do well in this sort of barren environment. So what I chose was a variety of Anubiases. That is Anubias Petite, there's Anubias Nana and Anubias Barteri in here. I picked some mosses, some Physidens, some Bucephalandras, this Mystery Crypt, and African Water Fern. And I also planted, which I'll show you in a minute, the top of the corner filter of this aquarium with a terrestrial moss. And I think that's an interesting component, so I'm going to show it to you here in a minute. These are the yellowfin shiners, and they're the largest fish in this aquarium at about 2.5 inches. Everything else is pretty darn petite, but I couldn't resist these guys. There's also a rainbow shiner in there that's about the same size. Now, I chose an inert substrate for this because I wanted the gravel to be easy to clean, and I wanted it to have a natural look. And so far, it's done really well. There's also a bunch of species in this aquarium that will lay their eggs in the substrate, and they prefer this size. This tank is stocked with a whole range of critters. The goals for this aquarium were to have a low-tech, low-maintenance aquarium with a lot of really cool small fish that have very particular requirements for oxygenation. Hillstream species really like a good current and a high oxygen saturation, usually what's found in cooler waters. So this aquarium is filtered with a Fluval FX5 that I made a custom spray bar to, and you can see how rapid the current is at the surface. And it also uses a corner matin filter, and that corner matin filter I chose because it's an entire wall of foam, which makes for really great filtration and low maintenance. And I did a custom intake behind it that's drilled the whole way top to bottom. And there, all of this build is found on my channel on the home screen on the 150-gallon playlist. It started out extremely heavily planted on this side, and even from the start I wasn't sure how well that would go because you can see how much the plants move from the current. But the ones that have stayed put have done really well. You can see there's some Bulbitis, a lot of that Anubias. This is Bucephalandra centipede, there's Bucephalandra brownie down here at the bottom. Some Physidens and some mosses. It used to be very, very dense with that water fern, but the water fern just hasn't really loved this tank long term. So I have stuck with the things that do. This tank is fed a range of diets. Some bottom feeder type pellets. The ones that are being fed right now is bug bites, frozen foods, some live baby brine, and Sarah Onip. There are a vast majority of species in here that are grazers, so it was really important to me to have good algal growth. Good algae growth on the rocks, and these rocks are actually white when I put them in here. But you can see that there is a nice thick coating of the natural awflux or algae that grows in the wild that these guys would normally graze on. You see there's a bunch of Stiphodonts, Sowelia, and Borneo suckers in here, all of which really prefer that algae in their diet. There's also several Rhinogobius, the scarlet gobies, which if they come out, we'll take a look at them. And I really hope that eventually they'll start to breed, but I may have to pull them out. There's one right here. and one right here. They are truly, truly beautiful fish. Now I tried to get a nice harem of 2 males to 4 females, but I ended up with more males than females. The females are smaller and not as brightly colored, but in a 150 gallon this doesn't seem to cause any problems because there's plenty of room for every fish in here to establish territory. I think it's really cool how those yellowfin shiners, heads and fins turn white when they're feeling really happy. This tank had a large volume water change yesterday. I try and do about 40 to 50% each week, sometimes more than once, especially when it's hot outside like it is now. Let's see if this is Sicyopus zosterophorus, a little goby. Here's our female rhinogobius. We still need to spot some of the gastromyzon. I saw them this morning, so I know they're in here. So, some plans I have for this aquarium. I'm actually thinking about moving it where it lies in the fish room in order to sort of make my shipping area more streamlined. So it's going to be interesting to see how we can move this big aquarium, especially because it has so many rocks and so much driftwood in it. We may end up having to do a total revamp, but we'll cover that when we get to it. As I mentioned, I planted the top of the corner filter with a terrestrial moss. And what's really cool is that it's growing underwater here in this giant mat, which I think will make for a great spawning mop for the critters in this aquarium that are egg layers, like these Brachydaniochaethet that you see there. But if we look up above the surface, if we look above the water surface, it's growing in a completely different manner up here. So it's really kind of cool to see the difference in the moss below and above water. Let's open up the lid and take a closer look for you guys. Now, not all mosses will grow both underwater and above water, but this particular moss, which I don't even know what it is, certainly does. And I think it looks really cool how it transitions from the leggy underwater look to the compact mat above water. I may try and pull some of this off and put it into other aquariums. Now, this crypt I planted over 2 years ago in this aquarium. It's Crypt Willisii, and it's neither grown nor died. So I would call it a fair to middling occurrence in this aquarium. You can see that there's some subwassertang here, which is a liverwort, more anubias, and this great big giant thicket of crypts. Now I put these crypts in here with the expectations that they would do really poorly, and instead they've colonized the whole central section of this aquarium. It's really kind of cool. I actually need to get in here and pull out some of these ones that are up at the front of the glass. Let's take a closer look at some of the critters in this aquarium. There we see a Rhinogobius and the yellowfin shiner with a Sewella behind it. That's Sicyopus again. The red dude is a rainbow shiner. There's some silver coolies and a Sewellia in the nook of the driftwood there. Feeding time is always super fun in this aquarium. Now I do often use food so that I can stick to the glass, just because otherwise the current pulls all the food down into this little nook of the aquarium, which is the quietest spot we can find. Here's one of the Gastromyzon variosus right here on the glass. They are a yellow-tailed Borneo sucker with zebra-type pattern, and they happen to be one of my favorites. All in all, I think this tank has been a pretty big success. Now, you guys may be wondering where my white clouds are that I generally keep in here, and I move them outside to the 300-gallon bin to breed for the season. I'm thinking I may pick up some more plants to try and repopulate that area of the driftwood in this aquarium. It used to have buces growing on it, but they gave up the ghost and moved to other parts of the aquarium. Part of the problem is I only have one light on this aquarium now, which is a high output T5 fixture, and it isn't as long as the aquarium, so I'm thinking I might need to add some more supplemental light. For the first year or so of this aquarium, I ran 2 very high-powered lights, one of which was on 24/7 and the other one which was on about 10 hours a day, in order to get the algae growth that we so like in this aquarium, as seen on this rock, or as seen on all the rocks. This really is one of my favorite aquariums in the fish room, which is why I had put it across from my shipping station. It's really relaxing to just sit and watch because there's activity on all levels of this aquarium at all times. That being said, I think it makes sense to move it to another part of the fish room so that I can enjoy it while sitting in my chair. As always, thank you guys for your continued support. Please make sure you're subscribed and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of my upcoming videos. Now I'm going to show you a bunch of gratuitous footage of the fish in this aquarium.